Uh, May I please request Dr. Rudrangshu Mukherjee, Chancellor and Professor of History, Ashoka University, founding member. Next, can I request Mr. Asim Prasad, CGM CSPA, GAIL India Limited. Mr. Harsh Chaparia, Partner, McKinsey & Company. Mr. Debe Mukherjee, Managing Director, Synergist Energy Private Limited and former President of the BCC&I. And Mr. Anurag Srivastava, Partner, PwC and former IAS. We also have another panelist, Mr. Prabhat Besbarua, who unfortunately could not join physically because he faced an accident day before and his doctors have asked him not to travel because of spondylitis. So he's joining us virtually. Hope you can see him in the screen. Yes, he is there. So without further ado, may I please request Dr. Rudrangshu Mukherjee to take over the proceedings.
Good afternoon and welcome to all of you and to all the panelists. I have no preamble for two reasons. One is we are desperately short of time. Unless you want to skip lunch completely, I don't think there are any takers for that. So I can only allow 5 to 6 minutes per speaker. So, and the second reason for not giving a preamble is that I feel I'm here under somewhat false pretenses. I am a historian by training. I teach and write history. And as you know, historians have a very tenuous link with the future. This session or this entire conference, seminar, whatever you want to call it, is to do with the future of the East and the Northeast and how it relates to the future of rising Asia. So I'll keep as quiet as possible, and I hope also I lead to the panelists that don't think I'm being rude if I have to cut you short, because we are really short of, very tight for time. So may I request Mr. Asim Prasad to begin the proceedings, and please 6 minutes once again.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Asim Prasad, and I represent GAIL India Limited. In the previous sessions, we have seen number of speakers talking very positively about the development of Eastern and Northeast region. I will resonate my thoughts with clean energy access, which is required to develop all these regions. To me, East and Northeast regions are the land of opportunities and growth. And it is due to number of reasons why I think so. It provides house to 17% of the Indian population, with 18% of covering 18% of India's land area. Literacy rate varies between 82 to 98%. It contributes 13% of the national GDP growth. It has 30% of the India's coal production, wherein the share of coal in India's primary energy mix is 56%. It produces 31% of crude, while the share of crude in India's primary energy mix is 27.1%. 50% of India's onshore natural gas production happens in this region. 5.7% is what is the share of natural gas in India's primary energy mix, and then 63% of India's TBM production. If we look into the hydrocarbon policy developed by the Government of India, which is based on 5 pillars related to people, policy, partnership, projects and production. The policy envisages doubling the production of oil and gas by 2030, developing Northeast region as a major hydrocarbon hub, improving infrastructure, making clean fuel accessible for the people who are there in the bottom of the pyramid, provide and generate employment opportunities, promote cooperation with neighboring countries. Other focus areas relate to trade and linkages, the Make in India, development of health and medical facilities, improve industrial policy, and then skill development. Eastern and northern states have significant presence in minerals, and these are the states where we have most of the minerals which can be harnessed, where the energy uses will be increasing exponentially. Whether it is iron ore, coal, bauxite, or any other mineral. If we look into the infrastructure development that GAIL has contributed to connect eastern and northeast states with the rest of the country through cross-country pipelines, natural gas pipelines, the Jagdishpur Haldia Bokaro Dhamra pipeline, which is the Urja Ganga pipeline, which we have almost commissioned except few sections which are there in the West Bengal. We have spent around 17,406 crores to develop this pipeline. Almost 1920 kilometers of this pipeline traverses through West Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, and then the Barauni-Guwahati section of this pipeline provides connectivity of exchange of natural gas between eastern and northeast region with the rest of the country. This pipeline traverses through 40 districts and it connects almost all the major industrial hubs, whether they are in Jharkhand, Odisha, or West Bengal, like Ranchi, Jamshedpur, Aditpur, Bokaro, Sindri, Raurkela, Kalinganagar, Jharsuguda, and then all the industrial hubs which are there in West Bengal. Apart from this, this pipeline will also evacuate around 4.5 MMSCMD of cold bed methane from fields which are there, which are operated by ONGC or other players in Bokaro, Jharia, and Rajinganj. The Barauni-Guwahati pipeline, which is having almost 266 kilometers section in Assam, northeast, traverses through 9 states, nine of the districts, and this will support the industrial development along with city gas distribution projects in this region. If we look into the entire presence of GAIL in eastern and northeast region, along with the project that we are doing to connect all the 8 states in the northeast region, that is the Indradhanush gas pipeline, which is 1656 kilometers, and it has a capacity of 4.75 MMSCMD. This will evacuate the gas which is from the different fields that are operated by oil and ONGC. Then we also have regional network of pipeline which is around 65 kilometers in Tripura. We have established a petrochemical plant which is 280 KTA and it is a polymer plant. This was commissioned in 2016 and now it is being upgraded. And then we are also working on ENP blocks in Tripura and then another in Karbi, Angola. We are executing around 18 city gas distribution projects in almost 18 of the geographic areas located in Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Assam, Tripura and Mizoram that will provide access to natural gas for cooking purpose. It will serve the industries, it will serve the commercial sectors, and then it will help develop the green corridor connecting these states through CNG in the transport sector. Our investment in the eastern states has been in excess of 38,000 crores, whether it is the section of the Urja Ganga pipeline or the Barauni-Guwahati pipeline, the Srikakulam-Angul pipeline, Mumbai-Jharsuguda Mumbai-Nagpur-Jharsuguda pipeline, the sections which are there in Odisha. We have also set up compressed biogas plant in Ranchi, which is which was commissioned at an estimated cost of 30 crores. Then we are partners establishing the Talcher Fertilizer Limited, where the local gas will be used. And then city gas distribution projects in Cuttack, Bhubaneswar, Ranchi, Jamshedpur, Giridih, Dhanbad, Saraikela, Kharswa, and then Calcutta. These are all operational. I will try to complete. Our investment in Northeast states is to the tune of 25,187 crores. Most of these are through the pipeline projects, and then the city gas distribution projects that will be coming up in this region. So natural gas has significant role to play, whether it is the power sector, steel sector, mining sector, coal gasification, manufacturing, or city gas distribution. And what I feel personally is that natural gas will be a game changer. It will foster economic growth. It will promote gas-based economy. It will support energy transition. And then all the ancillary industries which are in the commercial sector or industrial sector, those will be gaining with natural gas. And in fact, all the people who are there in the bottom of the pyramid, they will be using this domestic gas for cooking purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much for setting out how the East and the Northeast is indeed a region that is providing opportunities, and Gail's contribution to that emerging territory of opportunities. Thank you very much. Mr. Bezborua, who is joining us online. Mr. Bezborua, sorry to hear about your accident. I hope you're keeping well. We can only give you 6 minutes, I'm afraid. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Yeah, I apologize for not being able to be there in person. I actually, day before yesterday, I had a small road mishap. I mean, my car fell into a ditch, and my neck seems to have borne the brunt of that of that incident. It's a bit better actually today. I've been advised to wear a collar, strictly advised to wear a collar, but I've taken it off because I feel a bit embarrassed to wear it. Actually, I shouldn't, but I do. So, without any further ado, since there's only 6 minutes allotted to each person, let me get into presenting my thoughts. This conclave is focusing on the East and the Northeast, but they are two very different animals, actually, the East and the Northeast. The Northeast is connected to the country by a small corridor, which is called the Chicken's Neck. And whereas the East has a direct, very wide connection with the rest of the country. And, the whole politico-social scenario in the Northeast is again very different from that in the East. So I will focus on the Northeast. And I'll just throw questions at you rather than giving too many answers, or rather than giving a sort of exposition of how things are at present. I mean, I'm just going to throw some questions at you. I quote from the talk that preceded mine. The East and the Northeast apparently have 17% of the population of India, 18% of the area, and 13% of the GDP. So obviously the per capita, the GDP in the whole of the East is lower than the national average. And this is also the case for the Northeast. Undivided Assam was actually among the top 3 states as far as per capita GDP was concerned on the eve of independence. Now, the present state of Assam is in the bottom 5. And apart from Sikkim, all the other states in the Northeast are in the bottom 30% of the country's states, of all the states. Why did this happen? Assam is very important in the scheme of the Northeast because it accounts for more than 75% of the population of the whole of the Northeast. Approximately 30 million out of 40 million. That is what Assam accounts for. So most of the states in the Northeast were formed by splitting them off from Assam. So why has the Northeast languished? Why has it actually dropped from being a prosperous part of the country to a part of the country which is not doing well economically? I think the answer is connectivity. The problem is that chicken's neck. Earlier, the Northeast was connected to the rest of India through Bangladesh, through East Pakistan and then Bangladesh, through what was East Bengal and then East Pakistan and then Bangladesh. Once this connectivity disappeared, it became a sort of isolated part of the country without any sort of effective connectivity. I mean, you had to actually go around a huge extra distance to get to the markets, and likewise, any inputs that came from mainland India, if I can use that term, had to actually come round a hell of a long way in order to reach the Northeast. So the government has a sort of look east, act east policy. It started with look east, and now it's it's been renamed, and the focus has become a little more towards activism. So it's called Act East now. So this part of this policy involves the setting up of a trilateral highway which connects India through the northeast, through Burma to Thailand. So it is supposed to be a three-nation highway. And, once you're in Thailand, you're not too far from the Chinese mainland either. Yunnan is within striking distance. I don't mean in a bad way, within trade, within approachable distance from our country. Unfortunately, Myanmar is passing through a lot of turmoil, especially the part of Myanmar through which this highway is supposed to be going is now partly controlled by the Arakan army. And while the Arakan army is fairly well disposed towards India, construction activity has more or less come to a halt, and the highway is far from complete. So no real benefits have accrued to the region because of highway yet. Hopefully, the situation will resolve itself, and we will get some benefit out of this in the near future. I'm just hoping. I don't have any data to substantiate my hope. So the other sort of landmark project that the government had thought of is the Situate Port project on the Kaladan River, which would have been the second transnational port conceived by India after Chabahar. This was a fantastic idea because it connects the Northeast directly with the Bay of Bengal, and it would have brought in so many benefits to all the states of the Northeast. Again, it's running way behind schedule because, as I said already, Burma is having a lot of internal problems. But the Situate area, the Kaladan area, is not controlled by the Arakan army. But in order to approach it, you have to go through territory which is controlled by them. So problems abound. We had the hope of being able to access West Bengal through Bangladesh uh, while there was a friendly regime out there. But now again, with the recent developments in Bangladesh, the regime is no longer that friendly towards India. And I think that perhaps our government, put all its eggs in one basket, and it needs to redefine and realign itself with the people who are presently ruling Bangladesh in order to get relations back on an even keel, which is extremely important for the Northeast. The Northeast will be one of the biggest sufferers in case we have a hostile neighbor on this side. So anyway, I think I'll conclude by saying that there is a huge potential in the Northeast. The East, in a way, Bengal particularly, is a springboard to the Northeast. However, today, regional aspirations are also very dominant in each of the states of India, especially Assam. So, for Calcutta to position itself as the gateway to the Northeast might actually ruffle feathers in the Northeast. So, I think there should be a little little sort of sensitivity towards this issue and an acknowledgement of the ambition of certain northeastern cities to position themselves as the gateways. And I would include Siliguri here, which is in West Bengal, but which is in North Bengal, which also acts as a sort of gateway towards to the northeast. So Calcutta, while it would
Mr.
get
Bezborua,
spin-off benefits,
I have to
yeah,
cut you short.
yeah, absolutely. I'm done also. Thank you. Those were my thoughts, Doctor, and thank you for letting me have 7 minutes. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Bezborua. Despite your mishap that you joined us and raised some fundamental questions from opportunities, we moved to some of the very serious and fundamental obstacles that are there for the fulfillment of those opportunities. May I now ask Mr. Harsh Chaparia to, again, within 6 minutes, I have to keep on reiterating that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harsh Chaparia. I'm a partner with McKinsey based in Calcutta. I lead McKinsey's Kolkata office location, and I also lead the growth marketing and sales practice for McKinsey in India. I'll structure my presentation in 3 parts. We always believe that for a successful strategy, 3 things have to come together. One is trends. So you have to look at what are the trends which are happening globally and which are relevant for you. Second is you have to look at what are your endowments, right? So what are the strengths that you have? And then based on the trends and endowments, the third is what are the big moves therefore you can make, right, which can help you achieve success, right? So those are the 3 parts in which I would divide it. So first, let me talk about the trends, right? And many people have talked about it already. The first trend is well known. We call it India Century. Our global managing director, Bob Sternfels, when he was in India, he was asked this question, do you think this is India's decade? He said, this is not just India's decade, but this is India's century. And we also seen that, now clearly with this whole China plus one, we used to already be a major player as far as services was concerned, but now there's a shift towards India becoming a manufacturing hub as well. So there's a trend, right, which is very clearly visible. The second trend, which is a global trend, that there's a aging population and there's a declining population, and both of these are worrisome. If you look at the total fertility ratio in countries like South Korea, in many countries in Europe, in Japan, the populations are declining and very, very rapidly, right? So there are predictions that within 100 years, some of these countries, the population will decline by more than 50%, 60%, 70%. So that is a trend to take note of. And the third trend is energy, right? So we know that there is a big energy shift that is underway globally, right? Whether you talk about from an automotive perspective, moving toward lithium-ion batteries, or you talk about generally moving towards more renewables, we clearly see some energy shift. Now, in the backdrop of some of these trends that I have talked about, what are the endowments that West Bengal and Eastern region and the Northeast region have, right, that we can capitalize on? One big trend, and I think many people talked about it, some of the previous speakers, is the young and educated population, right? So we clearly have the level of education in both West Bengal and Northeast is greater than the Indian average. More than 35% population is under the age of 25. right? So in the backdrop of the trend that I talked about, aging and declining population, to have a young and educated population is a major source of endowment. The second endowment, again, somebody talked about it, is the strategic location. We are close to Southeast Asia. We have historical ties. In fact, I believe that our ties were much better to Southeast Asia let's say, 1,000 years ago compared to now, right? And there are many anecdotal things, right? If I look at some of the names of my colleagues in McKinsey Bangkok, they have Sanskrit names, and many of the Sanskrit words are pronounced in a very Bengali fashion, right? So they're like, instead of saying Parimal, they say Porimol. And then you wonder that, there's definitely some influence that happened even in the way that they pronounce Sanskrit words. There are direct flight connectivity, right? Many people get surprised when I tell them that Kolkata is closer to Bangkok than to Bombay. So, and therefore we don't leverage this enough, right? And this is an endowment that our ancestors probably leverage much better than what we do. Then the cost of living and labor. Kolkata is lower by 20% compared to Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore in terms of cost of living. Labor wages in West Bengal is lower by 25 to 30% compared to Maharashtra and Karnataka. And this is, if you look at the cost of living is lower, we don't have the same level of issues in terms of, let's say, if you talk about pollution in Delhi, or if you talk about, let's say, traffic in Bangalore, which everybody, if you talk to these cities, they will keep on talking about it. But we don't have that. So in terms of endowment, that's a big one, right? The cost of living is low. You have a good climate. Relatively, you have lesser pollution. And the last piece, from an energy perspective, Northeast region has huge hydro potential, out of which less than 5% has been harnessed, right? So as you think about newer energy sources, there's a huge potential from an energy perspective as well. So based on this, what are the big moves, right? So I'll talk about 4 of them. The first one is there is a semiconductor, fabrication unit that we're talking about now in West Bengal, right? And if that comes through, that could give a major impetus from a manufacturing perspective of things like electronics and so on. And just for the audience to know, 25% of ASEAN, Southeast Asia imports is on electrical and electronic items. And again, that is something that we can be very poised, both in terms of manufacturing for the country, but also exporting to neighboring places like Southeast Asia. Second is, of course, IT. Kolkata's IT sector is growing by 70% annually. Companies are looking for newer locations outside Bangalore because those cities are much more costly, much more expensive to find resources. And from that perspective, it's a great destination, both Kolkata and cities in the Northeast. Ease of doing business, a big move. We are already, from West Bengal, moved from 15 in 2015 to 9 in 2019 in terms of ranking of states. And I think our aspiration should be to be in the top 3 in the country, which will again attract much better investment. And last but not the least, tourism. Make direct connections with tourism hubs in Southeast Asia. I think we are at the tip of it. We have just started to have direct flights with Vietnam, and already flights are full. We have, starting from 1 flight, now there are multiple. And I think the potential to do that is far, far more. And not just with Calcutta, but with cities like, our airports like Bagdogra as well. So in a nutshell, those are some of the big moves. Thank you. Thanks for being a great audience.
Thank you so much, Harsh. From a historian's perspective, I can only reiterate the point that our connections with Southeast Asia, and in fact other parts of Asia, was certainly stronger than what they are today. And maybe the point to ponder, because of the history from the late 18th century, we have looked too much westwards than looking eastwards. Maybe the time has come to turn our faces away and look east again, eastward ho instead of westward ho. So, Mr. Mukherjee, Deve Mukherjee, so please, your turn. Minutes again.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for my submission this afternoon would be focused on what's the subject of deliberation is about in this session, and that is investment opportunities or investment in the growth. It says triangle, but possibly it's Bengal as the pivot and northeastern states of India. That's been the sort of flow as I can see. And before I make my submissions, Chair, I have a very small question that I would like to ask myself and to all of you. When we talk of investment, is it investment just for profit? Because Rudra Chatterjee spoke about ROI on investment. Or is it investment for value? Today, ladies and gentlemen, whether we like it or not, we are in an existential crisis. Now, why do I say that? It sounds as if I'm sounding the doomsday. But to my mind, for any investment decision, there are three principal considerations that work, usually, in a very broad sense, macro sense. One is, of course, economic, and that's what we have been all talking about all this time. The second is political, and that is very, very important. Political situation, political machinations, political understanding. And the third, which I think is crucial, if we take investment as a value proposition, is strategic. If we are looking at strategic investment, we will have to see, or we have to be guided by what the constraints are, the ground realities. Let's not elude ourselves by thinking of something or looking back at something or predicting or crystal gazing into something into the future, but what is existing and what is it that we can leverage on? What are our strengths? I'll give you some very simple empirical data from the small business that at this point in my life I'm operating, part of a global multinational, but a small operation in India. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, out of the Indian operations of the business, more than 80% of our revenue is being generated from the northeastern states. And that's very important. We are based out of Calcutta, and yet we are leveraging the strengths out of Calcutta or Kolkata, and we are delivering business in the Northeast. And incidentally, we are also delivering business to the Southeast to a small extent, but largely to Western Europe, where we are headquartered. Now, if we look at, have I crossed 3 minutes, Chair? Yes, possibly. Yes. So now, to bring it even to more specifics, let us look at, we understand the human capital. Dr. Mitra has spoke very well about it, and we have certainly leveraged on that in our small operation out of Kolkata. I would look at specifically 3 areas of growth. If, again, the caveat, if we look at investment in terms of value proposition, not for sheer profit. One is, the first I would think, is on data science, data management, which goes right across the spectrum to AI, ML, IoT, to be specific. That can potentially add huge value to the manufacturing and to the services sector. And as Dr. Katuri had mentioned, the services packaging to the manufacturing is significantly getting larger by the day. The second area, which is equally important, not much talked about, is skills for deep tech. And let me tell you, I'm very proud to say, and I'm very happy to say, that in our small operation, we have been able to file patent application on 2 technologies out of our small R&D setup in Kolkata, tried out with empirical data in the northeast of India, interestingly, in the state of Nagaland. And the third area, which I think is very important from a strategic point of view, is to look at resource efficient, if possible, nature-based, climate resilient products and services that are sustainable in nature. No one has talked about so far on the sustainability part of the business that we are working. Today, when we talk about CSR, ESG, it is like an optional extra. We also do it so that we feel good. But my simple question is that why can't we bring in the ESG and CSR into the mainstream of our activities? We don't talk about it as something that we are just trying to be compliant with and get the ticks in the boxes, so to speak. But it is something that's part of the business process. And let me tell you, bringing in frontier technology to simple operations in the field of agriculture and the supply chain management could do wonders. And we are doing it in a small area using nanotechnology in the field of nutrients and fertilizers. And building resource-efficient value chain by making the value chain in the agricultural sector more energy efficient, water efficient, and resource efficient. Because the planetary boundaries are getting stretched. As I said, we are in an existential crisis. If we don't manage it well, then I'm afraid we'll have a very hard price to pay. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. I mean, there are three very interesting and I would say very significant dimensions you've opened up. Investment as a value proposition, to the use of resources which are nature friendly and not something that we do to tick the boxes. I think it's a very, very, very significant point, these two, that you mentioned, and thank you for bringing them up. I think, at least from what I've heard, Robbie raised the point about ecology. Other than that, this hasn't come up in the discussion. So, Anurag, to do all that in 6 minutes, I envy your eloquence. Anurag Srivastava.
A very good afternoon. It's an honor to be a part of this summit and such an illustrious panel. And I'm not sure I would be saying anything new. Maybe I'll just summarizing it in a different manner. We have heard so much about it. And the topic today is, and the panel is, investing in growth triangle, emerging sectors and industries. And when I think about this topic, and when I think that what qualifies me to speak on this, for 16 years, many of you may know, for 16 years, I was in the Indian Administrative Service. I was in the industry sector for last 4 years. And now, for little more than 1 year, I'm working in PwC, and my area is industrial development and investment promotion. So I have been associated with this before. Prior to this, when I was in the government, I was primarily basically talking about West Bengal, talking for West Bengal. But in last 1 year, I've also seen what other states like, let's say, Maharashtra or Gujarat or Rajasthan have been doing. And when I think about this topic and how we are going to, what are the growth areas? What qualifies what is the pivot of the East to this growth? And everybody talked about the strength of this area. We accept that infrastructure, we always have had good infrastructure. The railways, ports, airports, at least for the West Bengal was much more stronger. It had a locational advantage. So always, whether it be, let's say, connectivity to ASEAN countries or Northeast, we always had a big locational advantage. Huge mineral wealth is there, which in the entire India, whether it be minerals of Jharkhand, Orissa, Bengal, Northeast, we have huge mineral wealth which is here. We have human capital. We are rich in agro-produce like maybe rice or tea. All this has been there. But speaker after speaker, and maybe it's an undertone, but we accept there is an apologetic tone as well, that we try to justify, no, we are doing very well in industry. But of course, maybe there is something which is probably not being spoken. And yes, that is in the manufacturing sector or maybe in the incentives. This region may not be as aggressive. Of course, Orissa is doing a lot about it, maybe Northeast, but still the growth that was witnessed, let's say in West or North or South, we lag behind that. But is it something to be, let's say, not, is it something that we have to explain and we have to compete with other states? I believe that all states have their strengths and weaknesses. There may be land may be amply available there. For example, just before this, there was rising Rajasthan in Rajasthan, and the cost of land or maybe the fallow land there is much more. So Rajasthan will have its other strengths. Whereas states like West Bengal or maybe states of Northeast, they would be having some different strength. Now, when I come to it, and we talk mostly when we talk about industries, we mostly talk about manufacturing. But what percentage of GDP is manufacturing? 15 to 17%. But when we talk about services, it would be 55% or so. And even in manufacturing, and despite saying that we are doing pretty well, 6 to 7% growth in manufacturing is taken to be a very good growth. At times, we have seen that growth to be 1 to 2%, then naturally so. Of course, we have to develop industrial parks, we have to develop incentive policies, we have to have infrastructure. It will take time. But for services sector, it has always been doing it 7, 8%, and that has been strength of India. And now let me come and say that why East has core strengths in that area. What does the service sector need? Better internet connectivity, when you can have data centers, when you have human resources, when you have a hold on technology, you can always do well in that area. And when we come to what sectors that are coming up, what are the sectors of the future? So when we talk about GCC or the Global Competency Center, what do they do? Basically, any big firm which may have a manufacturing base in any part of the world, they would be doing certain activities, primarily knowledge-focused, knowledge-intensive activities in a different part of the country. And then East, whether it be Northeast, whether it be West Bengal, whether it be Odisha, this entire part gives a lot of scope for that. Similarly, an emerging area is EV and battery and the entire space, which is going to change this world. But then a very important component for that would be nickel, cobalt, lithium, that is needed, rare earth metals that would be needed, same for the semicon industries. And this region already has a strong base for that. If in India, if there is a probability of finding a good resource of rare earth metals, it would be this region. We talk about healthcare. Healthcare is doing perfectly well, and we talk about, in addition to that, we talk about tourism. Many of us may not know that the second highest number of tourists basically come from Bangladesh. And what do they come from? Come for less for tourism, many of them come for healthcare. And that's where the advantage is. If we can promote that sector, develop this sector in the healthcare region, we don't need thousands and thousands acres of land. We don't need a lot of incentives for that. That area can be harnessed upon. Similarly, digital and AI, and almost all of us are fans of ChatGPT and how world is changing and how AI is doing that. And it will occupy the major chunk of the growth that is coming up. Bengal and East already has strong base for that. We have technological universities, we have manpower, we have human resource, which we can harness on that. We talk about fintech and Bandhan Bank. We have already seen how Bandhan Bank has progressed here, how insurance sector would be coming up, new technologies. This area has no disadvantage compared to any other part of the world. There has been a fest for incentives and states are vying one against other, but has actually it been studied that the number of employment that is being generated or even the output that is coming for the state? We can always invest in, let's say, technology, in human resource and get the equal outcomes. I don't need to repeat about the e-commerce, the logistics, how we can harness upon our strength. We are in this part of the world, and here, whether it be passing to the Northeast, passing to the ASEAN countries, we have huge strength there. Agri-tech and food processing, again, I will not repeat, we have huge strengths here, and as we can develop our agro-processing industries, this area can develop tremendously well. Having said that, I'll again say that it's not very easy. We don't need to do much, but the government, the private sector players, the overall ecosystem have to do their part. We have to align our policies. A speaker before me mentioned of the trends. We have to keep an eye on the trends, be prepared when the opportunity comes. And I'm sure if we can do that, East will certainly rise. Thank you.
Uh, so we have roughly, stretching it a bit, 5 minutes for a Q&A. It's pathetic, I know. What can you say and what can you answer in 5 minutes? But be that as it may, those are the constraints. Pointed questions, as was said by a previous moderator, Professor Roy Chaudhary. Let's not have a counter seminar.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
A microphone, yes.
I have one question.
So please, which
yeah,
of...
yeah, last speaker. The speaker of the speaker, from the first session has been telling about the manpower that will be generated over here. What I want to say, I come from the academic background, that the employability of the engineers that are being produced over here and the technicians, that is very low. If there are 45,000 engineers that has been coming out, not more than 10% are employable. So all the calculations that are going on and the statistics are given are not proper. I think that we need to change that.
Any responses to that?
Certainly, skills development, upskilling, reskilling, that is essential. I fully understand that. Curriculum in terms of skills training need to be changed, and that is a challenge, and that needs to be done. I agree with you.
So one last question. So I'll end with a parting provocation. We have spoken of opportunities and connectivity, I think, has come up in a very, very major way. People have emphasized virtual connectivity, particularly Professor Katuria. The provocation I want to leave with you, I don't have an answer, it's just a provocation, is how much is political machination, the point made by Mr. Mukherjee, how much is political machinations responsible for creating obstacles for physical connectivity? I think we need to consider that and the role that nation states, pigeonholed as they are with their own strategic and tactical interests, create those obstacles. Thank you very much. I would like to thank every single panelist and the audience. I think you have had enough food for the mind. Now, better food is awaiting you out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee and fellow panelists. Indeed, we have recovered a little bit of time. We were running, when we began, we were running 30 minutes short. Now we are about 15 minutes beyond schedule. So, which is a good thing to happen for us, because the lunch is about to happen after that. So, can we do the honors, please? Dr. Rudrangshu Mukherjee, sir, can I request you to kindly present a memento to Mr. Asim Prasad first? To Mr. Harsh Chaparia. To Mr. Debe Mukherjee. People at the back, I understand we are all hungry, but can we have a round of applause, please? And Mr. Anurag Srivastava.